So today we'll be learning about dividing polynomials, and before we get started, let's look at a reference point. And the reference point is going to be divide and write your answer as a mixed fraction, 11 divided by 4. So to do this, what we do is that this should all be a review, by the way, and it's going to be 4 divided by 11. And 4 fits into 11 two times, and so we're going to subtract 8 from 11, and we would get 3. And so now let's identify these points. The divisor is going to be 4, and the dividend is going to be 11 from this. This is what we're looking at. And the quotient, which is basically the answer, is 2. So we get 2 as our quotient, and the remainder, what we have left over, is 3. We will be referencing this point, so remember this. So now, let's go to this, the first problem we're going to solve. So remember, this is the divisor, right? So, and the other one is the dividend. And now, to write this down, we'll be writing it, we're using the long division method. So, we're going to put x plus 1 right here, which is the divisor. And the dividend is going to go here, x squared plus 2x squared minus x minus 2. So to start off, we will be looking at only the first term, and it's going to be x and x cubed. So what we're thinking right now is what times x gets us x cubed. And what we can know is that x squared times x is x cubed, right? So we put x squared right here, and then and then that's the first term as our answer. So what we should do next is we should multiply this by the entire divisor, and that answer is going to go right here. It's going to be x cubed plus x squared. So x squared times x squared times x is going to be x cubed, and x squared times 1 is going to be x squared. So it's going to be x cubed plus x squared. Now, what we do is we start off and we subtract that term from sorry. So it's going to be x plus 1, right? Yeah. So what we do next is that we subtract this from the dividend. And we do this because, remember our reference point? We subtracted the 8 from 11. So we basically do the same thing here. And what we get is we cross out the x because x cubed minus x cubed is 0, and we don't need to write that. And when we subtract these from these two, we're going to get x squared, because 2x squared minus x squared is x squared. And that's our answer. And now we drop these two down, so it's going to be x squared minus x minus 2, because we haven't done anything to them. And now we basically do the same thing. Sorry, this should be right here. Now we basically do the same thing. And so we're thinking about these two terms. So it's going to be what times x gets us x squared. And the first answer that pops up is, the only answer that pops up is positive x. So x times x is x squared. So now we've got our second term answer. So now we basically do the same thing, and we take this this term, and then we multiply it to the entirety of this, and we get x squared plus x. And then basically going back to the reference point, we subtract this from the entirety. We subtract this from this. So our answer is going to be x squared minus x squared is going to be 0. And then negative x minus x is going to be negative 2x. And then we drop down to 2, like how we normally do in long division. So we got this. And then we repeat the entire process. So it's going to be negative 2x. So to get what would be multiplied to x to get to negative 2x? And the first answer that pops up into our minds is negative 2, right? So now we do the exact same thing. We multiply negative 2 to this entire term over here, and we get negative 2x minus 2. And then we finally end this question, and we get a remainder, or no remainder. So our final answer is going to be x squared plus x minus 2. That's going to be our final answer right here. So x squared plus x minus 2. Now let's move on to another practice problem. So why don't you guys take a second to copy down the problem and try it on your own. Okay, I hope you've at least tried to solve this problem. Now let's go try it. So this is going to be the divisor, so it's going to be x squared minus 1. And then this is going to be the dividend, x minus 5x squared plus 4. So now let's get to solving it. And then we multiply this to the entirety of this. So we get x4 minus x squared. So when we subtract it, and we get negative 5x squared negative 5x squared minus negative x squared. And that is going to get us negative 4x squared plus 4. And now we basically do the entire thing over like we just learned. And it's going to get us negative 4. Wow. Negative 4. So it's going to be negative 4 times x squared. So it's going to be negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. So, and then this just cancels out, and we have no remainder, and that's our final answer, x squared minus 4. Nice, wonderful job. And now, let's start with a new type of problem, the one which has a remainder. And going back to what we just saw, we need to write this as a mixed fraction. I forgot about that. So how we're going to do that is, you should already know this, the whole number first, and then we add the fractions, which is going to be 3 and 4, and this is the remainder, remember? Remainder. And this is going to be the divisor. And finally, this is going to be the quotient. Sorry if my spelling's a bit bad, but let's move on. Okay, now we do the same steps. So it's going to be, the divisor here, x plus 2, and then the dividend, x cubed. So after we've done this, we do essentially the same thing. So 1 sec. So it's going to be, we're going to take what times x is going to be x cubed, and it's going to be x squared. So x squared, sorry, it's going to, when we multiply it, it's going to be x cubed. So it's going to be x cubed plus 2x squared. And then we subtract the entire things, just for like we talked about. So it's going to be x squared, and then we bring down this, so it's going to be plus 2x plus 5, and then we do the same thing. It's going to be plus x, because x times x is going to get us x squared. And then when we do that, we're going to get x squared. Then when we multiply x times 2, it's going to be plus 2x. And then we basically subtract like we've been doing. But, there's a problem. We have this 5, and we can't get an answer because nothing times x gets us 5. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is a remainder. And how we deal with remainders is exactly the same as how we deal with the remainders for this problem. So first, we write down the quotient, which is going to be, the quotient is going to be this. So it's going to be x squared plus x. And then just like a fraction, remember we're not multiplying the fraction when we're writing it here. We're not multiplying the fraction. We're not multiplying 3/4 to 2. We're basically just adding it. So what we do here is the same thing. So it's going to be, we're going to add a positive symbol because we're adding it. And then we're going to add, the remainder goes on the top. Remember 3? 3 is the remainder, and the remainder goes on the top, and the divisor goes on the bottom. So we're going to put plus, and then the remainder is going to be 5 here. And then put a fraction symbol, and then we're going to put the divisor, which is this. And we put x plus 2. And this is our answer for this problem. This is how we do dividing polynomials using the answer which has remainders. So let's move on to the next problem. So take a second here and try to solve it on your own. Well, I hope you at least tried to solve this problem like the last one. I hope you did. So now let's do this. It's going to be the divisor. X minus 1. X4 plus 2x cubed minus x plus 1. So right there, so we take this first one. So it's going to be x cubed right here. And then we multiply it to this. So it's going to be x fourth minus x cubed. And then we subtract it. It's going to be, that's going to cancel out. And then that's going to be 3x cubed minus. And then we bring down this. Remember to bring down the negative x plus 1. So it's going to be negative x plus 1 right here. And then we do the same thing to this one. So it's going to be plus x squared. And then we write the 3x squared right here. 3x squared. And minus x squared. Sorry, this is supposed to be cubed. I always write it down, but I know what I meant, so it's going to be x cubed, sorry. So then we're going to put x cubed, so it's going to be x minus x squared. And then that's it. And then we subtract it. So when we subtract this problem, we get, remember this does not go into this. So what we do here is basically just put it opposite. So right there, x squared minus x plus 1. And we do the same thing again, so it's going to be minus x. So it's going to be minus x squared. So it's going to be minus x squared plus x plus 1. Remember to bring down the plus 1. Actually, we don't bring down the plus 1 right now. We just wait. So we're going to cancel these out. And then we subtract this with that, which is going to get us minus 2x. And after we do that, we bring down the 1 finally. And then we're almost done with this problem, so it's going to be negative 2 right here. So then we do the same thing with this one, and then it's going to be negative 2x plus 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, one sec. Negative 2 times negative 1 is going to be, positive 2. And then we subtract this, so this cancels out, and we're left with 1 minus 2, which the answer is going to be negative 1, and that's a remainder. So now, remember what we do with the remainders? Let's write the answer right here. What we do with the remainder is basically we put it as a fraction. First, the quotient goes here, and the quotient is this right here on top. So it's going to be x cubed plus x squared minus x minus 2. And then we write the fraction in a fraction, and the remainder is going on top, negative 1. And then the divisor, which is x minus 1, if you remember. X minus 1. Remember to put the addition sign because you are not multiplying. You're adding the fraction. And that's our answer. So thank you for watching, and I hope you come back for our next video.